start, yeah? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for getting back so promptly. We're going to make a start with our session. I congratulate you all. You're all like finely tuned athletes who have embarked upon a marathon, and you're within sight of the finish line, so don't give up now. Stay with us for the last difficult 2 miles, and then we can all celebrate the finish. We've got this panel, and we're having some fun with a closing quick session, and then I think we can formally say that our 14th YES conference will draw to a close. But before we get to that, I'm delighted to say we've got a key guest with us. A lot of discussion over the course of the 2 days has really come down to, frankly, the relationship between Ukraine's government and its people, and the degree to which the people of this country have faith, can have faith in the rule of law, in the dispensation of justice in a truly independent fashion, from the very bottom to the very, very top of Ukrainian society. If that isn't present, then of course the country has a profound problem, and it leaks into so many of the other issues that we've discussed. Economics, security, everything. There needs to be a bond of trust between the people and the government, and my guest is crucial to developing faith and trust in this country. Of course, you all know him very well. He's been a very familiar figure in this country because he has been, as he was just telling me, not just Minister of Interior in the past, he has been a political prisoner in the past. And there are two very interesting, different insights into the judicial system right there. And now, as you know, Yuri Lutsenko is the Prosecutor General of Ukraine. So, Yuri, welcome. Please give Yuri a very warm welcome. I think Yuri is going to start with some opening remarks, and then I'm going to have a chance to question him, and you may have a quick chance to question him too. But Yuri, for now, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone who have come here. I would like to apologize right away for being a barrier between you and a beautiful speech of Mr. Kwasniewski. Everyone is looking forward to that, of course. But after everything that was said during this important conference, which was organized by Mr. Pinchuk, would make sense to finish with the topic of law and justice in Ukraine. In the Slavic languages, like in Ukrainian, the word justice is not translated word to word. We call it like fairness. And that's why the justice name itself does not coincide with its root word. For many years, the justice of this system, from the judicial point of view, was disattached from justice as fairness. And this was one of the reasons probably why the first and the second Maidan happened. At the last conference, I said that we are on our path from no to justice to yes to justice. We're at the point of maybe now. And I have something to say. And when I walk around the streets, and I do this on weekend without any security, they are saying me maybe something is happening. So what is happening actually? First of all, we have carried out the drastic change of the prosecution itself. We have reduced the quota of the staff. We have doubled the salary. We introduced the open access to the prosecution. Those who have never worked there before, you could never have imagined this. And about 80% of vacancies are replenished by the people who are from outside the system, with the support of the American advisor, Mr. Bogdan Lutitsky, who I'm very grateful to, a special general inspectorate which purges the corruption from inside the system. And the most important, we will get rid at the end of this year from the investigation. I do remember very well where I was walked on the 2-meter chain through the prosecution corridors, and the investigator on the right-hand side said, "It's great," and the prosecutor on the left-hand side said, that's good too, he's fine with that. So we have to separate them. Investigation and prosecution supervision separately, who will be making unbiased decisions. And the most important, we have created the self-governance. Myself, as the general prosecutor, do not have a dictatorship mandate. I cannot appoint anyone, nor can I dismiss anyone. This is done by the Special Council of Prosecutors and the Qualification Committee. What it means, it's a revolution. It means that no one, neither myself, nor my deputies, nor any other manager can tell to the rank-and-file investigator, put him to prison or you will be fired. Now it is impossible. We have switched from the post-Stalin system to a normal European one. Whether it's European in general, no, I'm not going to lie about this, no. But we are on the way. We are on the way of transition, but we are working in the right direction. The position number two, which many of you will be asking about or would like to ask about, is Maidan. Soon we're going to have another anniversary of Maidan, and I can proudly report to you that even here we have made something that the society was looking forward. Why the person like me was appointed? To give it a political impulse, to speed up the notorious cases, because we are in the country wherein the ex-president is being trialed in the court, and this is a signal not for Yanukovych and his team. This is a signal to all presidents and to all top officials who are going to come today and tomorrow. And I think this is the biggest achievement. Second, we have finished, except for individual cases, all instances of the entourage of Yanukovych. We're taking it all into the litigation. The investigation is finished. 116 people are in the court on Maidan, including the killers. And important news, at the end of this month, we will file a complaint against those who instructed to shoot the ex-president Yanukovych, according to our version, ex-head of the Interior Sackur, and ex-head of intelligence Yakimenko. And I'm very grateful to the department of Mr. HARDtalk, who is present here, for this super difficult but long-expected news. And the next position, I started calculating the number today, and I was impressed myself. As of today, in 1 year, we have detained in Ukraine 6,931 briber, people who took bribes, in 1 year, and 934 as of today are in litigation. Again, 400,000 bribe takers, without 66, but we will catch up. So 4,000 are in courts, people who have taken bribes. And I think this is the number that the whole system can be proud of. Another important thing that it has to do not only with minuscule civil servants, about the members of the High Council of Justice, the heads of the regional administration, ministries, services, state services, and rank-and-file civil servants as well, because every bribe is a link of the chain which is broken and it stops working. 3 bribe takers every day are being detained and brought to court. And I would like to criticize Mr. Pinchuk. He's not here, but they're saying that there's $1 million being counted somewhere here, around here. 25 million. That's not serious. I think that Mr. Pinchuk either saved, or if he spent so much for the lease of he would have to count $1.5 billion of Yanukovych mafia that we brought back to the budget. That would be very symbolic. You would have to count this $1.5 billion of living dollars that are already in the state budget. They are working for Ukraine, for the construction of the army, for building roads, for special permit and verification of Russians with fingerprints on the border, with the rural medicine, and all of these relevant tasks that society is demanding. And another thing which is important to say, that we are bringing back 200 hectares a day of stolen land, because there was such a tradition of the Ukrainian officials to steal land, to build small houses, small in inverted commas. 5,000 hectares were brought back to the state ownership of such land. So we can say that prosecution is efficient. But why wasn't I met by grateful citizens with flowers at the entrance? That's a valid question, because behind all of these achievements, there is an absence of courts with specific rulings and decisions of those who were caught by prosecution. I understand this very well. I understand perfectly well that people are interested in restoring justice by the ruling of the court. Unfortunately, we don't have that. And this is a cross-cutting theme at the HARDtalk conference in Kyiv. We need to have anti-corruption court. I don't care what is it going to be called, a separate anti-corruption court, anti-corruption chamber in the existing court. I need it tomorrow. I need it tomorrow. The faster you can do it, that will be created, whichever is faster. And I would like to support the Kerry's and Poroshenko thesis. All the courts have to be anti-corruption courts. It can't be that from the 26 cases of Nauru there will be a real fair court, and the 4,000 cases for bribes of the prosecution there will be something in the middle. All courts have to be the same for everyone who is accused of hard corruption crimes. They have to be honest, objective, and independent, and unbiased. So, dear politicians, dear members of the parliament, make your decisions fast, because 4,000 bribe takers are skipping their prison term. This is my task, this is your task, not mine. The country is looking forward for real courts. Maybe someone of you don't know this. The Pechersk court, the central court of the capital city, where there's about 1,000 notorious cases. We have 5 judges there. And I'm not going to talk about what kind of judges are they. I'm prohibited by law to criticize them. There are just 5 of them, just 5 for 800 cases plus. It means that we simply need immediately, tomorrow, judges who will start judging based on the law and based on the justice. And the last thing, but the most important thing, the task of the general prosecutor, as I understand, is not just to punish specific criminals, but together with the government, together with the parliament and the president, to change the situation in certain areas of the society, not to allow for additional temptation for corruption. It is a fact now, legal fact, that Yanukovych, during the time of his rule, has damaged Ukrainian country, according to the expert opinion, an amount of $40 billion US. This, dear foreign colleagues, is one annual budget of this country. Maybe someone of you forgot this. The Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, the first day of his premiership, got in the treasury the amount of $10,000 left for the whole country. For healthcare, for pension, for war, for energy, $10,000. Now there are 60 billion hryvnia. What is it? Who can count that? That's a lot. That's about $2 billion. Dear colleagues, so why did it happen so? Let's take the stealing of $40 billion as a number. Has nothing changed really? Let's analyze how this money was stolen. Can you do it now? It was stolen through the double price for gas, small for households, high for industry, and the small price was sent to their own companies and were taking cash out. 10 billion was spent for this, for our country. This scheme is not there, thanks to the parliament. There used to be tax platforms. Everyone had to pay to a private tax the platform of the Minister of Revenues, and only 1/3 would go to the government. We don't have this ugly situation with tax platforms. It's true, we don't have any kickbacks or bribes for VAT. It's all refunded automatically. We don't have the scheme of the so-called atypical imports when tax was leaking out. This is done automatically. We don't have chaos and mega corruption in state procurement. We have Prozoro system.
Я можу далі перечислювати величезні проривні рішення, які прийняв президент, уряд та парламент. Він сьогодні декриміналізував суспільство в великій мірі. Але перед нами ще 2 великі завдання. Державні монополії і державні підприємства, і митниця. Митниці потрібно ставити західну техніку, сканери і встановлювати режим перевірки з сусідніми країнами. Ми вже це робимо у Чернівецькій області. Пілотний експеримент, після якого, я думаю, буде багато галасу. А друге питання про державні монополії. Відповідь у всьому світі є лише одна. Її величність – приватизація. Тільки так можна позбутися 3,5 тисячі підприємств, які є постійним джерелом, в першу чергу, політичної корупції. Сили кланів, могутності олігархів, приватизація. Чесна, прозора на аукціоні цього року. Будь ласка. Завершуючи, можу сказати просту річ. Корупція в будь-якому суспільстві долається двома методами. Страхом для тих, кому є чого боятися, і совістю для тих, хто приймає державні рішення. Я думаю, що за цей рік ми відновили потрібну частину страху тим, кому є за що боятися. Моє любиме кіно – це коли два митника сидять між собою, оперативне відео, між собою домовляються про чергову корупційну оборудку, а потім один із них каже: ні, ну його до холєри, бо зараз прилетить Луценко з його вертольотами, я не буду підписувати. Для мене це найкращий фільм року. Це наш прокурорський Оскар. Ми встановлюємо страх для всіх, для недоторканних депутатів парламенту, для міністрів, в тому числі діючих, для чиновників і для простих громадян. Вони всі будуть відповідати по закону. Ніщо їх не прикриє. Я для цього на цій посаді. Але треба ще відновити совість у влади, коли приймаються рішення. Боюся, що це не тема мого виступу, принаймні поки я займаю деполітизовану посаду генерального прокурора. Це питання радше до виборців, бо совістю влади може скасувати корупцію швидше, ніж страх перед генеральною. Дякую.
It depends on whom they will vote for. Thank you very much.
Yuri, it's a great presentation. So promise me now that your answers will be as short as possible. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions and then we might get some from the floor. First, you say, quite honestly, you say, look, when I talk to people on the streets, they used to say there is no justice in this country. Now they say, well, maybe there's some justice in this country. They don't say, yes, for sure there is justice in this country. The easiest way, it seems to me, for you to convince people that you are truly now delivering a fair, just, independent system is not just to go after the small fish. And you said, what, 6,931 bribery suspects have been detained and 4,000 are going through the courts. How come that none of them are what many in Ukraine regard as the big fish, the most notorious, the wealthiest, the most powerful people, who many in this country regard as deeply corrupt, that they want to see you go after, and you are signally failing to go after? Why?
Так, ви праві.
Yes, you're right, because it would be best to show the new quality of justice through punishment of those who are well known to the entire country and who are protected with huge money or political influence. And it was to this end that we tabled the bill and voted for the creation of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau when I was head of the presidential faction in the parliament. These are very well-equipped people and well-trained people who will provide the answer to your question, but they are just beginning their work. As an institution, they are very young, and we are joining forces with the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. And there are also some cases which we are investigating together with the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, and we have traversed a certain way. There was juxtaposition, there was rivalry, but now there is cooperation. We create joint forces. We are detaining people who you are calling a big fish. These are, for instance, judges. This is a member of the highest council of justice. This is the acting deputy minister of public health. There's a head of the regional state administration. There's head of the state employment service. And there was also our joint visit to the parliament where for the first time in the history of Ukraine, two members of the governing coalition were stripped of their parliamentary immunity, and this means that we have shown that there is no pardon for even those who belong to government.
Well connected, so powerful, and so financially powerful that they are beyond the reach of the rule of law.
I told this, I said this in the parliament, and I will repeat that while I am Prosecutor General, not a single person who are rightly accused and who are about whom there is proof of their wrongdoings, they won't be able to hide beyond any protection. Crime has no party affiliation or whatever. I am repeating this. I am not stopped by the closeness of those people to the authority, and the power of authority is in the fact that it is just, not because someone votes for it. If there is a decision taken today about the stripping of parliamentary immunity from 4 people and 3 of them vote for governmental coalition, this means that the authority became stronger.
In for an interesting year, given your commitment, but it's very...
But excuse me for interrupt you.
Yeah.
Але з іншого боку, поки я генеральний...
On the other hand, while I am Prosecutor General, I reject the possibility of launching criminal cases by the order. If some politician would like to call their opponent a criminal, this does not mean that the Prosecutor General should comply with this. Only the facts. I know that there are a lot of rich people in this country whose honesty is being doubted by the society, but I need hard proof to start to prosecute them. I would not allow to make Prosecutor General's office the means of persecution of people who are not liked by some people. I am part of the Ukrainians, and while I respect Ukrainians very much, I reject ochlocracy where the rule of law is concerned.
Questions from me. One concerns the anti-corruption court. I confess I am extraordinarily confused about this anti-corruption court. I hear the president say, you know what, the lesson of trying to rebuild the Supreme Court is that it's just too difficult to actually create an anti-corruption court, so we better forget about it. I then hear the prime minister say, no, absolutely, we need an anti-corruption court. But he says, you know what, if we call it a chamber, it doesn't really matter. Then you come along and you say, I need an anti-corruption court and I need it tomorrow. And then you say, but by the way, if it's a chamber, that's okay too. I mean, you know, it's either a fish or a fowl. It's not both. Do you really want what seemed to be promised to this country, which is a full-fledged, proper anti-corruption court? Not a chamber, but a court. Is that what you want, and is that what you're going to fight for?
I am afraid that I will disappoint you with my answer, but it will be objective and it will be corroborated not by dreams but with actions. What's the difference between the two bills? Some MPs have filed the resolution about the anti-corruption court, which will service the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, and this court will be created by three politicians, 3 from the parliament, 3 from the government, 3 from the president. And I think that this reminds us of some other cases where people cannot agree who will be the major commissar. But of course, I am just a Prosecutor General. If MPs want to do it the other way, then let them do it. But I am in favor of anti-corruption court considering all cases of all the corruptioners, irrespective of who detained them. Can you tell me, is it possible to consider 4,000 cases in Kiev when you are bringing suspects to Kiev in special cars, in special vans? And how much time will the creation of the new court take? New competitions, new buildings, new equipment. And I think that this will take several years. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau's creation took a year to create. I don't have a year. 4,000 bribers are going around unpunished. I cannot wait for a year. Yes, I asked some MPs in the parliament, including people who have the same surname as myself, to table another bill, as almost everywhere in the world, to create a special chamber in the existing criminal courts and have these chambers in every regional center where in the open contest under the surveillance control of NGOs, new judges will be hired. Give me 50 judges of anti-corruption chamber or anti-corruption court, and we will return the country to normal life. From my point of view, we're talking here about only a discussion what is faster and what is more efficient, because I do not support the selection of judges by politicians, and I do not support the creation of a special institution for just one part of population, because everyone has to have a special justice. That's why the plan of Mr. Karin, Mr. Poroshenko is closer to me. But I do have a last suggestion. Let's create the chamber this year, and then we will create the anti-corruption court. Let's do it. Act, MPs. Less breaches of the border, more laws.
People that you're doing it in the right way, and a way which is truly independent and credible for their interest, and that is the balance you've got to strike. And on that question of taking the people with you, just one last question from me. It's about transparency. I hear so much about the way in which the Ukrainian government is being much more transparent about the way it spends money, the procurement process, everything else. From your point of view as Prosecutor General, is it acceptable, as the only English language newspaper that I happen to read in Kiev tells me in its main story this week, that the military budget, which as I understand it has gone up to a roughly $5 billion a year, it's 5% of the entire national budget, because of course you're at war, so you have to spend a lot of money on your military. Of that budget of billions and billions of US dollars, 95% of it, of the spending, is hidden from public view. Far from being transparent, it is entirely secret, behind closed doors. From your point of view, is that acceptable?
Dear colleagues, my every morning starts with the letter like this. The combat losses of Ukrainian troops have amounted to 1 dead, 3 wounded, and so on. My every morning starts with a report on our combat losses. This is quiet for all the year, for all the war, but we lose blood and people every day. We are waging 3 wars at once: the war with Putin, the war with corruption, and the war with bad government. We do have to wage a real war. This is not a usual military budget. This is a military budget of a country at war, and the disclosure of the financial details cannot be allowed. I would also like to boast with how we spent the millions that we confiscated from Mr. Yanukovych. But I cannot do this because our enemy should not know how we spend this money. We are at war. You may ask whether these financial flows are being controlled. Yes, they are controlled by the military prosecutor's office, and there are dozens of arrested and some people who were sentenced by courts, starting from a director of a tank plant and finishing with the general of the Ukrainian army. We cannot now disclose the access, open the access to figures in the military budget. The topic of war has dwindled to the background when the world is talking about Ukraine. You know, there are no battles now around the Donetsk airport, and there's no picture on the screens. But what if I take out another list, about 600 people who were tortured and their skins were flogged, they were raped, they were sent to demine with their feet, they were beaten, and of course I am very thankful to this audience for your firm support of Ukraine, but remember, all our existing problems and all our real great mistakes and our changes and transformations which are too slow, you still have to take into account the fact that this country is at war, and we pay with blood every day for the things that are happening in the east of Ukraine, not at our western border with Poland or in the Baltic countries. I want you to understand why our reforms are so slow. A great deal of our energy goes for war, and the great distrust and sometimes the hatred towards the authorities emanates from the fact of the war. We should not cite the war as justification, but we should take it into account and think of it in order to gain our common victory.
On principle, we're running late and we must stop in just a moment, but on principle, I never like to run a session without at least allowing one audience question for the principle of interactivity. So just potluck, I'll go to you, sir, with the white shirt. Yeah, you, we need to get a microphone to you. But unfortunately, the Q&A is going to be limited because we are short of time.
Дякую за запитання. Юрій Віталійович.
Thank you for your question. Yuri Vitalievich, I would like to remind you a story where 5-6 years ago during Yanukovych times you were detained, yet before the verdict you were called a thief, a corruptionist. Now you and your deputy are doing the same. You are calling bribe takers those people who were just detained. There's no any court ruling regarding them. Moreover, the qualification discipline committee of the prosecutors already launched the case against this. So how does this relate to the benefit of innocence, to the presumption of innocence? And can you promise to our young lawyers that you will not violate this fundamental principle of not guilty before trial? I'm proud that I established the self-governing body in the prosecution, which is now filing the disciplinary case against the general prosecutor and his deputy. I think there is no ground for this personally. One of my functional duties is to inform the society about the results and the outcomes of the institution who lives at the expense of the taxpayers. And that is why almost on the daily basis, maybe not that often, but still, I'm informing people about people who were caught hot-handed, different top officials. This is truth. We already even caught the Polish citizen, of the Georgian origin who demanded 70,000. The person was caught with $70,000 of cash. Shouldn't I talk about this? I think the other way around. I think people should know that you can trust this prosecution. You can even ask, even if it is the bribe for the prosecutor. I will also demanded 1 million as a bribe, and this person is already arrested. For example, the general prosecutor who took $2,000 is under arrest as well. So where am I violating the not guilty before trial? I'm not saying they're guilty. This is the prerogative of the court. But I'm saying that they were detained hot-handed when demanding the bribe. But let us transfer this discussion to the qualification committee. I'm sure you're going to be there. We will hear your arguments. You will hear my arguments. Because I'm too busy, I don't even remember which Facebook post are you complaining about. If it's justified, well, probably I will be reproached for this and there will be administrative penalty. But that's life. That's part of life. Maybe I'm notorious in this country that I never was afraid of acknowledging my mistakes. I even started my present statement at the second Maidan for apologizing for my mistakes. But I learned my lesson. And openness means informing in the day-to-day regime on what is going on in the prosecution and the courts.
All right, Yuri. I'm just looking at Victor and wondering, Victor, do you think we have time for one more, or do you think, yeah, one more? Okay. Yes, you, sir. You go on. Yep. No, not you, sir. I'm sorry. It was somebody behind you. I'm really sorry. Please don't fight over
На
it.
цій лінії зібрали зразу 4.
He gave it to you. Well, in that case, 2 questions. All right. So 1 and then 2. Good decision. You don't have a microphone. Let's get you a microphone. There you go.
Я хочу повернутися до ідеї.
I would like to go back to the question regarding the big fish. When we're talking about anti-corruption court as there's the unified institution, it is logical to think that it will deal with corruption cases of big fish. If you are talking about 6 or 4,000 corruption cases,
We've got to have it short, so get to the point.
І хочете розмазати.
if you want to dilute it across all the cases, you can by taking judges from the same courts, you will imitate. You will be imitating the window dressing this. The question is to you, is it right or not?
Я буду відповідати українською.
I will be answering in Ukrainian. Again, recruiting judges from newcomers, from the novelty. Emphasize again.
Through the common procedures, not special for one special enforcement. It's not right. Ще раз повторюю.
I would like to emphasize, why do you think that a detained minister should be tried by an honest court and the tax official by any other court? Why do you think that the responsibility of the big fish should be bigger than the responsibility of the same bribe taker? Mr. Bystritsky, please, I saw the person who by his own bribe killed the boarding school of 12 children are dead. So should he have just a mild trial or what? The justice either is there or no justice. It cannot be justice just for selected ones. There cannot be protection for the selected ones, but neither can there be justice for the selected ones. I think we should be creating the court where everyone, all corruptionists, would have a trial. Honest, and that's what Poroshenko and Kerry told you. But I have a very simple answer. You're very good in communicating with the Western world, eh? So let's wait for the response of the Venice Commission to our discussion. They are processing both draft laws. They will advise us, and there will be more truth in that advice. I want this court to come as soon as possible, not for everyone, not only for Nabu, not to be established by politicians, and to judge all corruption makers, no matter what size they are. The fish for fish soup is always good, any size.
I appreciate the passion. I know it's an important debate, but we've got to get to the last question and the last answer quick because we're running out of time.
Не давайте Мустафі, він про мене книжку написав.
Don't give to Mustafa. He wrote a book about me. He talks to me on the daily basis.
Well,
Я жартую.
I'm joking, of course.
last one. So where's the microphone? Let's get it. over there. There we go.
Yuri Vitalyevich,
Yuri Vitalyevich, just because I know you very well and I'm talking to you a lot, I want you to be very honest now, as much as you can. Not the politician, but a sincere person. This parliament appointed you general prosecutor in 4 hours. For you to understand, in 4 hours, we've changed the fundamental legislation of our country. We voted, and we voted for you as a general prosecutor. This was under the pressure of the president. In terms of anti-corruption court, the law should have been tabled 1 year ago by the president. We haven't seen any initiative coming from the president over that last year. During President Yanukovych, Mr. Kwasniewski will not let me lie, and Pat Cox will not. When they came to Yanukovych, he always said, I can't fire Tymoshenko because the parliament didn't pass the law. I can't free Tymoshenko because the parliament didn't vote. When we asked what happening with Lutsenko, he said, well, there is a court decision. This is not a question to me. I have a question to you. I have a question to you. I have a question to you. Can you tell me honestly? You are meeting with the president very often. Can you confess to us, is there a will of the president and yourself as your friend to establish an entity who really would be beating to prison, and not like the Pasechny case, who is 16 months, doesn't have any trial? It's. Can you tell me again that this is really the problem with the parliament, or not your will or presidential will, which is to blame? First of all, I don't recognize you, Mustafa, because you used to say that I know you and I respect you. It seems like you're skipping that part, eh? But, okay, I'm joking, because I have very good attitude to you. I'm apologizing for being informal with you in this room. But I think that for about 15 years ago, I was very much like you today. But since that time, I have been through different trials and tests, and there's no any black and white picture of this world, not at all. When you're talking about the law was passed in 4 hours, about general prosecution was voted for 2 weeks, but that's not the question. The question is different. So is this prosecutor general better than all those professional prosecutors of the Yanukovych era? Of course, the expectations were higher, and I also had higher expectations, but there's no any black and white picture. I think, for some reason, that the decision of the parliament to support the politically appointed general prosecutor Lutsenko brought its fruit. And I can show this by specialized confiscation, all the cases launched against the members of the parliament of the coalition, and all other principal decisions that I'm not being loud about. But let's say this, because I know there are a lot of people sitting here who want to ask me one thing. Saakashvili word. And I know the answer to that. That's why I'm a politician, because I answer to your question in such a way to say what I want to say, eh? But Mustafa, again and again, I'm speaking and I'm supporting the establishment of the anti-corruption court that will judge and will be established without politicians. For all institutions universally, not for NABU exclusively. For all corruptionists, not only for the capital city corruptionists. How you do it, separate court or separate chamber, I don't care. But it has to be one for all corruptionists as soon as possible. Now I apologize for the moderator, and with the allowance of Mr. Kwasniewski, I would like to speak about Saakashvili, because something that I was walking through the corridor and I promise that I will answer that question.
I confess I am interested to hear what you want to say about Saakashvili. As Prime Minister Groysman, to my question about Saakashvili and what are you going to do about it, came up with a wonderful response of nothing. What are you going to do about it? Tell us.
Thank you. Excuse me very much that I change your plan. Okay.
Well, you know, I know you're going to be brief, but you're going to be interesting, so go on.
You see, this is very wonder country where prisoner can be a general prosecutor and where is interviewer may be in discussion with some person with whom he has an interview. It is hard talk in Ukrainian way.
Yeah.
But Mustafa,
answering to your question, Mustafa, in a more broader sense, whether something has changed in me whether I can be honest. That is why I want to talk about Saakashvili case. Yes, indeed, there is a big difference between the Tymoshenko case or Lutsenko case under Yanukovych and Saakashvili case. The difference is I was detained and arrested without any justification, without any ground. Even if you think that my case could have been investigated, there was not any necessity for the arrest. But it was a politically motivated, beneficial for Yanukovych as the first trial before doing the same with another leader of opposition, Yulia Tymoshenko. So we both, together with her, we won early elections. We didn't allow him to become a prime minister. He knew what he was doing. And I managed to get the success only 2.5 years in the prison. European court acknowledges a politically motivated case and illegal the decision about my arrest. What is happening now? Mr. Saakashvili got his citizenship from the hands of the president of Ukraine. It was a discretional selection authorized by the president of Ukraine. He has a mandate to do that. To receive that, President Saakashvili has filled out or didn't certain official documents. At certain point of time, politicians, not me, started asking questions whether that document, that form, whether it is true or not. And the Ministry of Interior said no. And Saakashvili himself, strange enough, he said, I didn't sign it at all. So how can you demand a passport if you didn't ask for one at all in the first place? So how this issue be resolved? Only in one only manner. The court, the trial. If the citizen feels that his rights were violated, he goes to court. In our country, though, they also visit Maidan on the way to the court, but still going to the court, As the old Jewish joke, when the Isaac comes to heaven and says, God, I always believed in you, but I never won the lottery. He said, buy the lottery ticket. You never bought the lottery ticket. Mr. Saakashvili, if you hear me, go to court, file the case, administrative case, and get your answer. That's what it's done around the world. The courts are there to do that. But me as a prosecutor general, I'm telling you very clear message. Saakashvili will not be detained on that case. Saakashvili cannot be extradited from this country while he has the permanent residence or some other documents that he filed. And those who transported him from to Ukraine through the border will have criminal problems, but they will not be arrested too. Those who were beating up the border guards will have criminal cases and will have to sit in prison. For all the politicians to remember, you can have rallies, you should have rallies, but you cannot at the same time beat the soldiers and officers who are protecting the Ukrainian border. This has to be something sacred and untouchable. So in this case, the crime is there, but the rest of it is just penalty, the fine, and the trial, full stop.
Really in Kiev next Tuesday. Apparently he's going to be in town, and if you're in town, it might be good to get together. But anyway.
You see, I had a very interesting story with Mikhail. I know.
We love your stories, but we've had lots of them.
Mr. Saakashvili congratulated me on my appointment of the general prosecutor, and we found it in Odessa during the search warrant. So that's why the investigator sent it to me. I think it meant something. Then I called Mikhail, and we had a joke about this. I said, well, it happened so that during the search warrant, on one of the cases that was important, we found his congratulation letter. Maybe it was a sign or omen, I don't know. But I don't think Saakashvili is my enemy. I don't consider him to be my enemy. I don't consider him to be a criminal. I just recommend him not to turn the argument with administrative decision of the government into an attempt of destabilizing the whole country. We, all of us, are the citizens of this country. We are too little in the face of the changes that Ukrainian country is facing. Our ambitions have to be below the ground, and our flag has to be hoisted high up in the sky.
I love listening to you because you speak with such passion and strength and vigor and care. And it also generates a brilliant debate here in Ukraine. So I'm sorry, hands up, we're out of time. I'm really sorry. I can see you're desperate to talk to Yuri, but I'm sorry, we are out of time. Victor's here. We've got a final sort of closing little session to do. Before that, though, please just give a great big thank you to Yuri Lutsenko. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you.